The moment the gunshot ripped through the quiet park, my entire world collapsed in front of my eyes. My disabled daughter, Lily, my heartbeat, my pride, my whole universe, fell to the ground with a scream so haunting it will echo inside me forever. And standing there, holding the smoking gun, was her HOA Karen. The woman who had complained for months about my daughter's noise, her wheelchair tracks on the sidewalk, her laughter, her existence. She didn't hesitate. She didn't blink. She just pulled the trigger, like my child was nothing. But what Karen didn't know, what she couldn't have possibly imagined, was that the man sprinting toward his wounded daughter wasn't an ordinary father. I was someone she should have never crossed. Someone trained for moments like this. Someone who didn't just protect his family, he protected entire cities. And soon, Karen was going to learn exactly who I was. Before the chaos, before the gunshot, before the park turned into a battlefield of screams and sirens, it was supposed to be an ordinary Sunday. The kind of peaceful afternoon every parent hopes for. Lily was rolling through the park in her small purple wheelchair, her hair tied in two messy braids, humming her favorite tune while the sunlight danced on her braces. She loved the open space, the breeze, the birds, everything she rarely got to enjoy at home because of the never-ending HOA complaints. Every week, someone filed a report about her being too loud, too slow, too distracting, or blocking pathways. And every report traced back to the same person, HOA Karen, a woman who walked like she owned the world and treated everyone like guests trespassing on her property. But today, we weren't even in the neighborhood. We were at a public park, away from her. Or so I thought. As we reached the swings, Lily asked me to push her, and for a moment, everything felt normal. She laughed, and that laughter was everything to me, pure, innocent, and hard-earned. Then I heard footsteps behind us. Heavy, fast, angry. I turned, and there she was, Karen, her face twisted with the kind of rage you only see in nightmares. Before I could speak, she reached into her bag. A glint of metal flashed, a sound exploded, and Lily screamed. My hands shook as I lifted her into my arms, her blood soaking into my shirt. But even as my world shattered, one thing stayed crystal clear. Karen had no idea who she'd just messed with. And when she found out, it would already be too late. The moment Lily's scream split the quiet air of the park, everything inside me snapped into a different kind of reality, one I hadn't lived in for years, one I hoped I'd never have to return to. I remembered dropping to my knees beside her, my hands trembling, but my mind sharpening like a blade. Blood was pooling beneath her small body, warm against my palms as I lifted her gently, terrified of the damage I couldn't yet see. Her face was pale, shocked, her wide eyes darting around like she was trying to make sense of the impossible. "Daddy, my leg, it burns," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. I kept my voice steady, the way I'd once been trained to do under fire. "I've got you, Lily. I'm right here. Stay with me." But inside, I was breaking into pieces, so sharp they could cut through bone. I looked up and there she was, Karen, not scared, not shaken, not apologetic, smirking. Her expression was twisted into something sickeningly proud, like she believed shooting a defenseless disabled child was some kind of victory. She held the gun casually at her side, like it was nothing more than a TV remote she'd used to change the channel. "I warned you," she hissed, her voice dripping with the poison of someone who believed the world belonged to her. "I warned you she was a nuisance. I warned you I'd take care of it if you didn't. And you didn't listen." She took a step toward us, her heels clicking on the pavement with a sharp, taunting rhythm. "This neighborhood has rules. And that girl of yours, she breaks all of them." The world around us seemed to freeze. Parents covered their children's eyes. Joggers stopped mid-step. A teenager dropped his bike. No one moved. No one helped. They were stunned, horrified, but frozen by the shock of seeing a woman casually fire a gun at a child in broad daylight. The smell of burnt gunpowder lingered in the air, mixing with the faint scent of grass and the metallic tang of blood. I felt Lily's small fingers grip my wrist weakly. "Dad," Hurts, she whispered again, and I fought the urge to fall apart because she needed me strong. I slid one arm under her and pressed my other hand firmly against her leg to slow the bleeding. My shirt was soaked, but I kept pressure steady. I had done battlefield medicine before. This was different. This was my child, but the training kicked in whether I wanted it to or not. Call 911. I ordered to the stunned crowd, my voice echoing through the park with the authority of someone who expected to be obeyed. Two people scrambled for their phones. A woman began crying softly, covering her mouth with shaking hands. A man muttered, oh God," under his breath. But Karen? Karen laughed. Go ahead, she said, her voice steady and venomous. Call whoever you want. He can't protect her from the rules. You think I'm scared? Her arrogance was unbelievable, but it was also her biggest mistake. I looked into her eyes and saw something dark, entitlement mixed with delusion. And she still had no idea who she was talking to. I kept my voice low, controlled. Put the gun down. She tilted her head, mocking me. Or what? You'll report me to the HOA? Oh, wait. I am the HOA. She lifted the gun again, aimed it at me this time, and the park erupted in screams. People dove behind benches, dragging their kids with them. A dog broke free from its leash and ran. Even the birds scattered from the trees. Karen stood proudly, convinced she was untouchable. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my mind was cold, calculating every move, every angle, every possible outcome. If she fired again, I wouldn't be able to shield Lily completely. If I lunged, I might startle her into pulling the trigger. If I stayed still, she held all the power. But then someone shouted, "Police are on the way." Karen's eyes flickered, uncertainty flashing across her face for a split second. A split second was all I needed. I positioned my body over Lily's, protecting her with everything I had. Karen took a step back, her grip tightening on the gun. This wouldn't have happened if you people listened, she spat. I told everyone she was a danger. A liability. She's a child, I growled. She's my child. Karen scoffed. Disabled or not, she doesn't belong here. None of you do. That was the moment I felt something inside me shift, from fear to fury, from shock to purpose. She had crossed the line between cruelty and attempted murder, and she still acted like she had the moral high ground. Sirens echoed in the distance, growing louder. Karen's eyes widened. For the first time, she looked nervous, but she still didn't drop the gun. She took one more step backward, clutching her purse with one hand and the gun with the other, like she couldn't decide whether to run or finish what she started. No one will believe you, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Everyone knows how your daughter acts. Everyone knows you people cause problems. They'll understand why I did it. I stared at her, shocked by the depth of her delusion, but it also told me something important. Something she hadn't realized, she revealed. She didn't know me. Not really. Not my name. Not my history. Not my job. Not what I was trained to do. Not what power I actually held. She didn't know the one fact that could have stopped her from ever raising that gun in the first place. And as those sirens grew closer, she muttered, "You think the cops will save you? They listen to me. I run this place." Oh, she had no idea. And she was seconds away from finding out exactly who I was and why shooting my daughter was the deadliest mistake she had ever made. As the wail of approaching sirens grew louder, the atmosphere in the park shifted from shock to a trembling anticipation. Every parent, every teenager, every jogger who had witnessed the unthinkable now stared between me, wounded Lily in my arms, and Karen still gripping the gun, like they were watching a nightmare unfold in slow motion. But what came next was something none of them could have ever prepared for. Because in the very moment when any normal person would panic, drop the weapon, or at least attempt to flee, Karen did something so outrageous, so unbelievable, that even the air around us seemed to freeze in disbelief. She marched toward me. Not away, not running, not scared, marching like a self-appointed queen ready to deliver the final verdict on peasants who dared disobey her. Her heels stabbed the pavement with each step. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm of a woman convinced she was untouchable. Give. Me? The gun? I said, my voice deep and commanding, even though I knew she would listen. Lily whimpered in my arms, her head resting against my shoulder, tears streaking her cheeks. I adjusted my hold on her, keeping pressure on the wound as best I could. My mind remained in two places at once, half with my daughter, half locked on the danger in front of me, calculating distance, angles, speed, the way I used to during raids overseas. And still, Karen kept coming. You're making this worse for yourself, she snapped, as if I was the aggressor. Put that child down and step away from her wheelchair. She doesn't get any special treatment here. Rules are rules. The crowd gasped. A man yelled, "Are you insane? You just shot her." A woman screamed, "Stay away from them." Parents shielded their kids. Even the teenagers recording the scene on their phones stopped and lowered their cameras, terrified Karen might shoot again. But Karen wasn't listening to anyone. "I'm the HOA president," she barked, chin raised, eyes blazing with delusion. "This community listens to me, and when I say someone is a danger, the rules back me up." I stared at her in disbelief. "This is a public park," I said slowly, fighting to keep my tone even. "You don't have authority here." "I have authority everywhere," she snapped. "People respect me. They follow me. You think the police are coming to save you?" She actually laughed, short, sharp, and deranged. "No, they'll listen to me. They always do." And that was when the police cruisers skidded into the parking lot, lights flashing across the trees, sirens choking off mid-wail. Everyone backed up instinctively. Parents huddled their children behind benches. Onlookers scattered, trying to give space. I held Lily tighter, whispering reassurances as her breathing wavered. But even as 3 officers sprinted toward us, Karen didn't look afraid. She looked confident, relieved, victorious, like she believed reinforcements had arrived for her. And, shockingly, the officers didn't immediately go to Karen. They didn't yell at her to drop the gun. They didn't restrain her. They ran right toward me. "Sir," one officer shouted, hand on his holster. "Step away from the child." The park erupted into chaos. People screamed. One man yelled, "No, you got it wrong." A woman protested, "She's the shooter. She did it." A teenager pointed directly at Karen, shaking uncontrollably. "She shot the kid. She did it. She's the one with the gun." But the officers kept their eyes locked on me, not Karen. And Karen folded her arms smugly across her chest. "Finally," she said under her breath, loud enough for me to hear. "Now, maybe you'll learn your place." My blood boiled. Lily whimpered again, her small fingers curling weakly around my sleeve. She was fading, and time was running out. But I couldn't move, not until the officers realized the truth. "Sir," the lead officer repeated, "you need to put the child down and listen to me," I said sharply, my voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "She's been shot. She needs medical attention immediately. Karen, she is the shooter. Look at her hand. She's holding the gun." The officer hesitated, confused for the first time. Karen sighed dramatically. "Officers, please don't waste time on this. He's trying to blame me to avoid responsibility. That child has been causing disruptions for months. This man refuses to follow HOA safety guidelines. He's putting everyone at risk." She actually pointed at Lily, who was bleeding out of my arms. "That is the problem. Not me." The insanity in her words sent a shiver down the spine of every witness. "Ma'am," the second officer said, "we're going to need you to—" I said. Karen snapped. "I'll handle this. I told you I run this neighborhood. He's the one causing problems. I've reported him dozens of times." "This is a public park, Karen," someone shouted. "You don't run the world." The officers looked between us, the situation spiraling into confusion. And Karen, growing more impatient, raised the gun slightly, just enough for everyone to gasp again. "If you're not going to follow the rules," she threatened, "then I will make sure, Karen, drop the weapon." A fourth voice thundered across the park. Powerful, commanding. Not a request, a direct order. Everyone turned. A man in tactical clothing had stepped out of the last police vehicle, badge glinting on his chest, bulletproof vest strapped tight, expression carved from stone. Officer Ramirez, the shift commander, and someone I knew very well. He took one look at Lily in my arms, then at Karen with the gun, and his face went dark. "Ma'am," he barked, "you will drop that gun right now, or I will personally put you on the ground." Karen blinked, stunned. "Excuse me? Who do you think? Drop it." Ramirez roared again. Karen's face crumbled into shock. "But I'm the HOA president. You know me. You're supposed to listen to Karen," he said coldly. "That man you're threatening? That's my commanding officer, the one who trained me. And the person you just shot is his daughter." The entire park froze. Karen's mouth hung open. The officers stiffened like statues. The crowd gasped in unison. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Karen understood she was not untouchable. She was in danger. Real danger. And I hadn't even said a word yet. Her hand shook. The gun slipped from her grip and clattered onto the pavement. Ramirez immediately advanced, shouting commands, 2 officers rushing with cuffs. Karen stumbled backward, spluttering, I didn't know. I didn't know who he was, but it was too late, because now she knew, and the entire world was about to find out exactly who I really was. The moment Ramirez's words exploded through the park, "That man is my commanding officer, and the girl she shot is his daughter," the entire atmosphere shifted like someone had ripped the ground out from under everyone's feet. It wasn't just shock anymore. It wasn't even fear. It was the realization that the woman they had watched bully, threaten, and terrorize the neighborhood for years had just crossed the one line that could never be forgiven. She attacked the wrong family. The whispers spread like wildfire through the park as parents clutched their children tighter, teens traded wide-eyed looks, and elderly neighbors muttered prayers under their breath. Some people stepped back, others stepped closer, whispering to each other, "I knew she was trouble. She's finally getting what she deserves." That poor little girl, a woman in a green jacket, actually fell to her knees, hands trembling as she began sobbing. I should have reported her earlier. I should have said something. Guilt, fear, anger, they rippled through the crowd like chains snapping one by one. But the reactions didn't stop at shock. Not even close. As officers moved in on Karen, who was now frozen, shaking, her face drained of all that entitled confidence, neighbors finally found their courage. A man in a baseball cap, eyes red with fury, pointed a finger at her. "This is the woman who threatened my autistic son for playing in the driveway. She said she'd have him removed." Another mother stepped forward. "She told my daughter she didn't belong here because she used a walker, said she was ruining the neighborhood's image." An elderly couple approached the officers, trembling but determined. "She fined us $300 for having a wheelchair ramp," the woman said, voice breaking, said it was unsightly. "We paid it because we were scared." One after another, complaints poured out, months, years of silent suffering finally surfacing like cracks in a dam that had been ready to burst for a long time. I held Lily close, adjusting her in my arms as she whimpered softly. Her breathing was uneven, her tears hot against my neck. I pressed my cheek gently against her forehead. "Stay with me, sweetheart," I whispered, voice low but steady. "I'm right here. Daddy's got you." As more people stepped forward to expose Karen, I couldn't help but stare at the scene. Dozens of neighbors, strangers even, uniting not in anger alone, but in revelation. They had been afraid. Afraid of her power, her position, her threats, her endless stream of baseless rules. But now that mask had shattered, and with it, her grip on everyone around her. But the community's reaction didn't end with confessions. Some people turned to me, not with pity, but with remorse. A middle-aged man approached cautiously. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I always thought she was just strict. I never imagined." His voice cracked. I should have spoken up. A mom holding a toddler came forward next, tears shining in her eyes. "Your daughter, she's such a sweet girl. She always waves at everyone. She didn't deserve this. None of you deserve this." Another woman added, She bullied everyone. We were all scared to stand up to her. But this, she gestured at Lily's blood-soaked leg. This is unforgivable. I didn't respond, not because I didn't hear them, but because my mind was entirely on my daughter, her color, her breaths, her small fingers gripping tighter every now and then. The park lights flickered on overhead as the sun dipped lower, painting the scene in a strange mixture of gold and red. Lily looked up at me through tear-blurred eyes. "Daddy?" "Yes, baby," I whispered, smoothing her hair. "It hurts." Her voice was so faint it nearly broke me in half. "I know," I murmured. "Hold on. We're getting you help right now." The paramedics arrived, rushing toward us with equipment bags and stretchers. They dropped to their knees beside us, immediately assessing her wound. "Gunshot left leg through and through," one medic said, already applying a tourniquet. "Pulse weak, blood loss significant." Another medic placed an oxygen mask gently over her mouth and nose. "We're going to take care of you, sweetheart," she said softly, stroking Lily's cheek. "You're so brave." Lily whimpered but nodded faintly, her fingers slipping from my sleeve as the medics worked. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe as they lifted her onto the stretcher. The moment her small hand left mine, something inside me felt like it tore apart. I started to follow, but Ramirez stepped beside me, not blocking me, but steadying me with a firm hand on my shoulder. "She'll be okay," he said, voice low but steady. "She's strong, like her dad." I didn't answer. My jaw clenched as I stared at Karen being dragged toward a cruiser, her hands cuffed behind her back, her voice cracking into hysterical shrieks. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. I make the rules. I own this community." "No," Ramirez muttered, walking past her. "Not anymore." But Karen wasn't finished, not even close. As two officers pushed her into the back of the cruiser, she twisted around, her face contorted with hatred and desperation. "I didn't know," she screamed. "I didn't know who you were." The crowd flinched at the venom in her voice. "If I knew, I would have never." She stopped herself mid-scream, realizing too late what she had just admitted in front of dozens of witnesses and 4 recording teenagers. The crowd gasped. I turned slowly, staring at her through the cruiser window. For the first time, she went utterly silent, not because she was scared of the consequences anymore, but because she finally understood the gravity of her mistake. She hadn't just shot a disabled child. She had shot my child. And now, the truth of who I really was, something she had never bothered to learn because she assumed I was beneath her, was about to reshape everything. "Transport her," Ramirez ordered. "Separate precinct. High-risk holding." Officers nodded, shutting the cruiser door. As they drove off, the neighbors clustered around, some crying, some shaking, all silent as they watched Karen's power dissolve like dust in the wind. But even with her gone, something heavy lingered, a mix of sorrow, anger, and a growing realization that this was only the beginning. Because once the truth came out, the entire community, the entire city, maybe even the entire country was going to know exactly who I was. And why Karen should have run the moment she saw me in that park. I took a breath, preparing for what came next, because Karen's actions had just started a fire she could never hope to contain. And I was done staying silent. The flashing red and blue lights of the patrol cars painted the entire park in dizzying color as the investigation officially began. But even with all the officers, medics, and investigators swarming the area, the world around me felt strangely muted, like someone had lowered the volume on everything except the sound of Lily's distant ambulance siren fading into the city streets. I stood there, feeling her absence like a physical wound, my hands still stained with her blood, my heart still pounding with the terror of almost losing her. But I didn't have the luxury of collapsing. Not yet. Not while the woman who hurt her was still spinning lies. Not while this community needed clarity. And certainly not while the officers, my own officers, struggled to understand the storm they had just stepped into. Ramirez, now fully in command of the scene, approached with a grave expression. "Sir, I know your priority is Lily, but we need your statement before anything gets twisted." And he was right. Because if there was one thing Karen was good at, it was weaponizing her mouth. The first officers had already tried talking to witnesses, but their reports were chaotic. Everyone was emotional, shaking, crying, talking over each other. Some were furious and yelling. Others were apologizing for years of silence. Teenagers were offering shaky phone footage. Parents were comforting their kids who had never seen violence before. The truth was there, but buried under panic. So I nodded. Let's do it. Ramirez guided me toward a temporary command tent they'd set up near the park entrance. As we walked, I heard whispers following me. Fear, awe, and confusion blending together. That's him, the officer's commander. He's the one Karen was always harassing? How did she not know who he was? Oh my God, his daughter. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The park bench where Lily had been shot was now surrounded by crime scene tape. Officers were marking evidence, photographing the shell casing, measuring distances, and carefully placing small cones where Karen had stood. A forensics tech crouched near the blood-stained pavement, gathering swab samples with trembling hands. Even seasoned professionals were shaken. Seeing a child's blood always did that. Inside the tent, I sat across from Detective Jacobs, a sharp-eyed investigator with a calm voice and steady hands, someone I trained years ago. She clicked on her recorder and spoke clearly. Commander, for the record, please describe the events beginning from the moment you entered the park. I took a slow breath, grounding myself, and began recounting everything. How Lily had been laughing, how Karen had approached with anger in her eyes, how she had pulled the gun from her bag without hesitation, how the shot rang out, how Lily collapsed screaming, how Karen mocked us afterward, how she raised the weapon again when confronted, and how she believed she was untouchable because of her HOA status. I relayed every detail, every word, every movement, every expression. Jacobs listened with full attention, occasionally glancing at Ramirez, who stood behind me like a wall of support. When I described the moment Karen aimed the gun at me, Jacobs clenched her jaw so tightly I could hear her teeth grind. When I repeated Karen's twisted justification, she doesn't belong here. None of you do. Jacobs muttered under her breath, My God, but it wasn't until I reached the part where Karen screamed, I didn't know who he was, that Jacobs froze mid-writing. Slowly she looked up. Sir, she admitted that? I nodded. In front of dozens of witnesses, Jacobs leaned back in her chair, processing. So she openly confessed that if she knew your status, she wouldn't have pulled the trigger. Meaning the only reason she shot Lily, the only reason she escalated, was because she thought you were powerless. Her voice grew colder. That isn't just attempted murder. That's a hate-motivated, targeted act driven by delusional authority and discrimination. Ramirez answered before I could. That's why she targeted his daughter for months. She thought she could get away with anything. Jacob sighed heavily and shut off the recorder. Sir, I don't say this lightly. This case isn't just big. It's explosive. She organized her files. An HOA president abusing her position is one thing. Attempted murder is another. But targeting a disabled child and then admitting she believed she was above law enforcement. Her eyes locked on mine. This isn't staying local. This is going state, maybe federal. I didn't respond. My mind kept drifting to Lily, alone in the ambulance, surrounded by strangers, fighting pain I couldn't shield her from. Jacobs must have sensed where my thoughts were going because she softened. Sir, you should head to the hospital. The rest is under control here. But just as I stood to leave, a commotion erupted outside. Ramirez pushed open the tent flap, and the noise hit us instantly. Reporters, dozens of them. Cameras flashing, microphones raised, news vans pulling up along the sidewalk like sharks circling blood. Commander, is it true the HOA president shot your daughter? Is the suspect connected to extremist groups? Is this a case of discrimination against disabled individuals? Will the department pursue maximum charges? How did the HOA gain this much power in your neighborhood? Did she know you were a high-ranking officer? I stiffened. Ramirez cursed under his breath. They got here fast. Someone leaked it. And then, cutting through the chaotic barrage of questions, came the worst one. Is your daughter expected to survive? The words pierced straight through me. I exhaled slowly, fighting the urge to shove the cameras aside and drag every reporter off the scene. Jacob stepped forward. Clear a path. Make way. Officers formed a human barrier, pushing back the crowd as I moved through, keeping my face expressionless even as every question thrown at me felt like a blade, twisting deeper. The moment I reached my car, my phone buzzed, multiple messages, missed calls, notifications exploding nonstop. But one text froze me in place. We're prepping her for surgery. Please come quickly. Your nurse, my chest tightened. For a moment, the world blurred. But then training took over. I opened the car door. Ramirez jogged up. Sir, before you go, I want you to know something. I turned. His expression was fierce, loyal. Karen's lies won't stand. Not this time. Not with what she did. We'll make sure the truth comes out, every detail. I nodded once. Thank you. And sir, he added quietly, we're all with you. Whatever comes next. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I simply got into the car and drove, the sirens behind me fading, the chaos of the park shrinking in the rearview mirror. Ahead of me was the hospital, sterile hallways, surgery rooms, and a fight far more terrifying than the one I'd just left behind. Because bullets, criminals, investigations, those I knew how to handle. But watching my daughter fight for her life, that was a battle I wasn't ready for. Not even as the man Karen never knew she should have feared. The drive to the hospital felt like an eternity. Every red light an insult, every slow-moving car an enemy, every second a reminder that my little girl was somewhere inside an ambulance, bleeding, terrified, without her father beside her. By the time I screeched into the ER parking lot and rushed through the sliding doors, my chest felt tight, my breath ragged. The nurse at the front desk recognized me instantly, not because of my rank, but because my shirt was still drenched in Lily's blood. She's in, or two, the nurse said, voice soft but urgent. They're stabilizing her now. You can wait in the family area. Stabilizing. A word meant to comfort, but capable of destroying a man. I walked mechanically down the hallway, past families crying, past doctors shouting orders, past the sterile smell of antiseptic that hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken. When I reached the family waiting room, I collapsed into a chair. For a moment, I felt truly powerless, and that's when the door creaked open. A doctor in green scrubs stepped inside, removing her gloves with careful, practiced motions. Her expression was unreadable, a trait I had seen 1,000 times on the battlefield. It was the look of someone who had news that could go either way. Sir, she began gently, your daughter is in surgery. The bullet struck her leg and caused severe tissue damage. We're working to prevent further complications. She lost a lot of blood, but she's fighting. Fighting. My brave little girl. I nodded, gripping the arms of the chair to keep from shaking. I want to see her, I said. After surgery, the doctor replied, we'll let you know the moment she's stable enough. She left as quietly as she came, and I put my face in my hands. That was when the twist, one I never expected, hit. My phone buzzed. Over and over. Nonstop. At first, I ignored it, thinking it was reporters or officers with updates. But the buzzing wouldn't stop. 15 missed calls. 37 messages. I frowned, grabbed the phone, and the moment I unlocked the screen, my heart jolted. National exposure. The story had exploded across the country. In less than 2 hours. Headlines everywhere. HOA president shoots disabled child in park. Father revealed as high-ranking law enforcement commander. Community members accuse HOA of abuse, discrimination. Witnesses say shooter claimed she owned the neighborhood. And one headline that froze my blood. Police chief's daughter shot. Suspect claims she didn't know his rank. Police chief. They were referring to me. Karen had no idea who she had attacked. A man with authority, training, and a reputation across the state. And now, because of one bullet everyone knew, cameras outside the hospital, news vans flooding the parking lot, social media erupting in outrage, celebrities tweeting, disability rights organizations calling for justice. But that wasn't the twist. That wasn't even close. The real twist arrived when my phone rang again, this time from a hidden number marked as federal. I answered. "Commander," the voice said, deep and official, "this is Deputy Director Collins. We're sending a federal unit to speak with you." I stiffened. Federal involvement meant one thing. This was no longer a simple local investigation. "We've reviewed preliminary witness videos," Collins continued. "This incident is bigger than a single shooting. There are concerns about targeted discrimination, abuse of power, and potential civil rights violations. Your daughter's case may fall under federal hate crime statutes." I closed my eyes. "I understand. We'll be there within the hour." Collins said, "And, Commander, we're going to make sure your daughter's case receives the highest priority." The call ended, and for the first time since the shooting, something inside me shifted. Not relief, not comfort, but something darker. Purpose. Karen thought she had power. Thought she controlled the neighborhood, the rules, the people. But she didn't control the federal government. She didn't control national outrage. She didn't control the truth. And she certainly didn't control me. As I sat there processing everything, the door opened again. Ramirez stepped in quietly. "Sir," he said, lowering his voice, "you need to see this." He handed me his phone. A video, shaky, recorded by a teenager in the park. The moment Karen aimed the gun. The sound of the shot. Lily's scream. Karen's smirk. And then her chilling words. "I warned you people. She doesn't belong here." The video ended with her shouting, "I didn't know who he was." It had millions of views. Millions. "Sir," Ramirez said, swallowing hard, "the entire country is furious. They want justice for Lily. They want accountability for the HOA." And he hesitated. "They want to know who you are." I finally looked up at him. "They'll find out soon enough." Ramirez nodded. "The governor has already contacted the department. The mayor wants a full briefing. Even the FBI is waiting for your statement." My jaw clenched. A part of me wished none of this mattered, wished the world could just focus on Lily's healing. But another part of me, the part one had tried to bury years ago, felt the old fire returning. The same fire I had felt in war zones during hostage rescues, during nights when the city depended on me to make hard calls. Karen had awakened something she couldn't comprehend, and destiny had just delivered me the platform to expose everything she had built her cruelty on. Before I could speak, a nurse rushed into the room. "Sir, they're wheeling her out of surgery now. She's stable enough for you to see her, just for a moment." My heart nearly stopped. I rose, so fast the chair scraped loudly across the floor. Ramirez stepped back, letting me pass. "Go," he said. I didn't waste a second. I hurried down the hallway, past nurses and doctors, until I reached the recovery area, and there, lying small and fragile under a white blanket, was my daughter. Tubes, bandages, oxygen, but breathing, alive, fighting. I sat beside her bed, taking her tiny hand carefully in mine. Her eyelids fluttered weakly. "Daddy," she whispered. My throat tightened painfully. "I'm here, sweetheart." A faint smile. "You came?" "Always," I said, squeezing her hand gently. "I'll always come for you." She drifted back to sleep, and I brushed a tear from her cheek. The twist was clear now. Karen thought she had shot a powerless child, but she had ignited a national storm, and the storm wasn't ending anytime soon. Because this story, our story, had only just begun, and justice, real justice, was coming for her, faster than she could ever imagine. The soft beeping of the heart monitor filled the recovery room, steady and reassuring, each beep a reminder that Lily was still here, still fighting. As I sat beside her, her small hand wrapped gently in mine, it was hard to believe that only hours earlier she had been laughing in the park, sunlight in her hair, and then bleeding in my arms. Now she was surrounded by machines and 4 lines, her leg tightly bandaged, her breath shallow but steady. I brushed a stray strand of hair from her forehead and whispered, "Daddy's right here." She didn't respond, still sedated, but her fingers twitched ever so slightly around mine. That tiny motion alone fortified my resolve more than 1,000 speeches ever could. This wasn't just about justice anymore. This was personal. This was war. And I was a man built for war. A knock at the door broke the silence. Deputy Director Collins, the federal official who had called earlier, stepped inside, accompanied by 2 agents in dark suits. Their expressions were grim, respectful, and deeply serious. "Commander," Collins said, offering a firm nod, "how is she?" I swallowed hard. "Alive. Fighting." Collins exhaled, visibly relieved. "Good. That's good." He glanced at the agents, then back at me. "We need to brief you on the situation. But before we start, I want you to know something clearly. This case is no longer confined to your department, your city, or even your state." He paused, letting the weight of his words land. "It's national." I nodded slowly. I already suspected as much from the flood of alerts and the media frenzy building outside the hospital. But hearing it out loud made the reality sharper. "Tell me everything," I said. Collins gestured for one of the agents to hand me a tablet. The screen lit up with a flood of footage, witness statements, and interviews, all recorded within just the past few hours. Clips of Karen screaming at neighbors, videos of her threatening children for riding bikes, audio recordings of her calling disabled kids a neighborhood hazard, photos of fines, notices, and letters she had posted on people's doors for absurd violations. And then the damning footage. The moment she shot Lily, followed by her confession, "I didn't know who he was." Collins shook his head. "This woman wasn't just a bully," he said. "She was running the HOA like a personal dictatorship, targeting families, threatening kids, abusing power, discriminating based on disability and race. And because no one challenged her, she escalated." He tapped the screen showing the park footage. "This is one of the clearest hate-driven attacks I've seen in my career." The agent beside him added, "We've already secured a warrant to search her house, her records, her HOA files. What we've found, it's unbelievable." Collins continued, "Multiple counts of discrimination, forged fines, illegally accessing neighbor backgrounds, threats, extortion, false reports, and now attempted murder of a disabled minor." My jaw tightened. "I want the maximum charges," I said quietly but firmly. "She doesn't get to walk away from this." Collins nodded. "She won't. She's already been placed in high-security holding. But there's more." He hesitated, studying me closely. "The governor has called for your presence at an emergency press briefing tonight." I frowned. "I'm not leaving my daughter." "You don't have to," Collins said. "They're holding it right here at the hospital." I blinked. "Why?" Collins took a breath. "Because the entire country is demanding justice. They want answers. They want leadership. And you, Commander, you represent both the victim's parent and the highest-ranking law enforcement officer connected to this case." He added softly, "People trust you." I looked down at Lily, small, fragile, fighting for her life, and something inside me hardened. Trust, responsibility, leadership, these weren't just words. They were obligations. And Karen had tried to destroy all of them, not just by shooting Lily, but by believing she was above the law, above morality, above human decency. When I asked, 30 minutes, Collins replied, "We'll handle security. All you need to do is speak." I nodded slowly. "I'll do it." Before Collins left, he turned back one last time. "And, Commander, your daughter, she has an entire country praying for her." When the room fell quiet again, I stood, leaned over Lily, and kissed her forehead gently. "Daddy's going to make sure the whole world knows the truth," I whispered. "And I'm going to make sure that woman pays for what she did to you." 30 minutes later, I stepped out into the hospital courtyard. The place was packed. Reporters, cameras, officials, flashing lights, dozens of police officers forming barriers. And behind them, hundreds of people. Parents holding signs saying, "Justice for Lily," disabled children in wheelchairs, families from my community, people from out of town who had driven hours just to show support. When I stepped up to the podium, The noise instantly died. Silence spread like a wave. I took a breath and looked into the sea of cameras. My daughter, I began, voice steady but heavy, is 8 years old. She loves swings, purple flowers, and brushing her dog's fur. Today she was shot in a public park by a woman who believed she was above the law. A ripple of anger passed through the crowd. She was targeted. I continued, because she is disabled, because she is vulnerable, because someone in a position of authority thought she could get away with hurting her. I paused, letting the words sink in. That woman was wrong. The crowd murmured in agreement. Cameras clicked rapidly. I want every parent in this country to hear me clearly. I said, leaning forward slightly. No one, no matter their title, their status, or their position, has the right to harm a child. No one has the right to use power to threaten, intimidate, or destroy lives. And no one has the right to escape justice. My voice grew stronger. The investigation is now in federal hands. Charges are being prepared. And I promise you, my daughter will get justice, not just for her, but for every family that woman has ever terrorized. A wave of applause erupted, raw, emotional, angry applause. Some people cried. Some yelled, "Justice." And for the first time since the shooting, I felt something shift, not closure, not peace, but the beginning of balance returning. As I turned to walk back inside, parents reached out to touch my arm, whispering their prayers. Children in wheelchairs waved tiny hands. Strangers called out, "We're with you." The entire country was behind Lily. As I re-entered her room, the machine still beeped steadily. I sat down beside her again, took her hand gently and whispered, "The world knows your name now, baby, and justice is coming." Justice wasn't just an outcome. It was a promise, and I intended to keep it. If you've made it this far, then you already know this isn't just a story. This is a fight every parent, every neighbor, every community should stand behind. The fight to protect our children, our disabled loved ones, and every innocent soul who suffers because someone with power thinks they're untouchable. Lily may be lying in a hospital bed right now in this story, but in real life, children like her face discrimination, bullying, and cruelty every single day. And the truth is, their voices depend on people like you. So, before you go, I want you to do 3 simple things. Backhand index pointing right, comment the city you're watching from, so Lily knows the entire country stands with her. Backhand index pointing right, hit that subscribe button. Because I'm bringing you more powerful stories that expose injustice and shine a light where others stay silent. Backhand index pointing right, share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that courage always wins and villains, no matter how powerful, always fall. Your support means everything. Your voice matters. I'll see you in the next story. Stay strong, stay kind, and never stay silent.